I'm writing this because I keep replaying it like a bad habit. If I don't put it somewhere outside my head, it's going to stay there forever. I moved into the building in late autumn, when the air started to taste like metal and wet leaves. It wasn't a nice place. It was cheap, close to my job, and the landlord didn't ask questions. That was the whole pitch. The hallway always smelled like old cooking oil and damp plaster. The carpet had been vacuumed so many times it looked shaved. Most of the people kept to themselves. You'd hear them through the walls, though. TV laughs, muffled arguments, a baby crying at the wrong hours. The building felt like it was holding its breath. 2 doors down from mine lived a guy named Mark. That wasn't what he introduced himself as. He didn't introduce himself at all. I learned his name from the mailboxes. Mark D. Hollis, printed in faded label maker tape. He was the kind of neighbor you only noticed because you didn't notice him. He didn't have visitors. He didn't play music. He didn't smoke in the stairwell. He didn't say hello. If you passed him, he'd give you a small nod like he'd already decided you weren't a threat. Dark jacket, dark hair, the kind of face that could disappear into any crowd. Sometimes he carried grocery bags that never clinked with bottles and never showed the corner of a cereal box. Just plain brown paper, always tied neatly. The first month I lived there, I thought I was lucky. No noise, no drama, no random strangers sleeping in the lobby. I could come home, lock my door, and pretend the rest of the world wasn't waiting to claw at me. Then the first smell started. It didn't hit all at once. It wasn't some movie moment where you walk in and gag. It was gradual, like someone turning a dial 1 notch each day. A sour edge in the hall, a heavy sweetness that didn't belong. I told myself it was a neighbor's trash. Someone had left meat out. Someone had a cat that wasn't using the litter box. I took the stairs instead of the elevator and tried to breathe through my mouth. When the smell got worse, people complained. Not to each other, though. You'd see the landlord tape notices to the wall about proper disposal and building hygiene. A few residents started leaving air fresheners on the ledge by the mailboxes like offerings. Mark's door stayed shut. The second thing was the flies. It was cold outside, and still there were flies in the hallway some days. Not a swarm, just a few at first, sluggish, like they'd gotten lost. Then more. You'd see them on the stairwell windows, tapping against the glass. Sometimes they'd sit on Mark's doorframe, clinging to the chipped paint. One morning, I stood there with my key halfway in my lock and watched a fly crawl across my knuckles. I flinched, shook my hand, and it floated away like it had all the time in the world. That's when I first thought, this isn't normal. I'm not proud of what I did next. I'm not proud because it makes me sound like the kind of person I don't want to be. But I want this to be honest. I listened. Not in a dramatic way. Not with a glass against the wall like a cartoon. Just, I started paying attention. Because once you notice something off, you look for more off. Mark's place wasn't silent. It was quiet in the way a room is quiet when someone is trying to be quiet. Late evenings, if the building settled and everyone stopped moving around, you could hear it. A soft dragging sound, a scrape, like furniture being shifted inch by inch. It would stop if someone walked past his door, then start again after a long pause, when it seemed like he believed the hall was empty. I told myself he was rearranging. I told myself he had a heavy desk, but it kept happening. And there was another sound too sometimes. Not loud, more like a steady, low hum, the kind you'd get from a fan or a small machine. I didn't hear it every night. I heard it often enough that my brain started making room for it. The building's plumbing was a mess, and the pipes clanked like someone hitting them with a wrench, so I could always explain away any noise. That's what I did. I explained. Until the day the landlord knocked on my door. He was a thin man with a red face, the kind that always looks sunburned even in winter. He wore the same stained sweater every time I saw him, and he always smelled like cigarettes. "Hey," he said, not looking me in the eye. "You home much during the day?" "Sometimes," I said. "Why?" He rubbed his forehead like he already regretted coming. "Got a situation. Tenant in 3B isn't answering. People are complaining. You know, smell. Bugs. 3B was Mark's." I felt my stomach tighten, like my body knew before my mind did. "Maybe he's away," I said. "Maybe," the landlord said. "But he owes rent, and he's not picking up his phone. I gotta do a welfare check." He said welfare check, like it was a formality, like he was reading from a manual. Then he looked at me. "I don't like going in alone. You mind coming with me?" I should have said no. I didn't. Part of it was plain curiosity. Part of it was that I didn't want to be the only person in the building who pretended nothing was wrong. We walked down the hall together. The smell was stronger near Mark's door, thick enough that my eyes watered. The landlord's face tightened, and he muttered something under his breath. The flies were there too, clustered near the top corner of the doorframe. He knocked hard. "Mark," he called. "Open up." Nothing. He knocked again. "Building management. This is about rent and complaints. Open the door." Still nothing. He shifted his weight, like he was trying to decide if he wanted to do what he came to do. He pulled a ring of keys from his pocket. There were too many keys. He fumbled them like his fingers had gone numb. "You got any idea what's going on with him?" he asked me without turning around. "No," I said, which was true. He found the right key and slid it into the lock. The moment he turned it, the hum inside the apartment stopped. Not slowly, not fading out. It cut off like someone had flipped a switch. The landlord froze. I froze with him. He swallowed and pushed the door open. The first thing that came out wasn't a smell exactly. It was a thickness. Warm air rolling into the hall like a damp towel. It carried the stench with it, and my throat tightened. The landlord took one step in. I stayed at the threshold, my hand on the door frame like I could hold myself back if I needed to. The apartment was dark. The curtains were drawn. The only light came from a blue glow deeper inside, the kind you'd get from a screen. "Mark," the landlord called again. A shape moved in the darkness. I saw it before I understood it. Mark was standing near the kitchen, half hidden by a wall. He didn't step forward. He didn't say anything. He just looked at us. His eyes were open wide, but his face was calm. The landlord let out a nervous laugh. "Jesus, man. You scared the hell out of me. People thought you were dead in here." Mark's gaze moved to me. I felt like someone had pressed a cold coin against the back of my neck. "I'm fine," Mark said. His voice was normal. Not deep, not whispery, not anything that would make you think of a villain. It sounded like someone ordering coffee. The landlord cleared his throat. "Well, you need to answer your phone, and you need to deal with whatever this is." He waved a hand like he could brush the smell away. Mark didn't move. "I'm working." The landlord looked past him into the apartment. "Working on what?" Mark's eyes flicked toward the hallway behind us, like he wanted the door closed. I should have stepped back. Instead, I leaned in, just a fraction, trying to see. The place was too tidy for the smell. That was the weird part. The living room was neat. No piles of clothes. No trash. The floor looked clean. But the air felt wrong, like something heavy was hanging just out of sight. The landlord took another step, then stopped short. "What the?" he said. Mark finally moved. He stepped between the landlord and whatever the landlord was looking at. "You can't be here," Mark said. The landlord's face went redder. "I absolutely can. This is my building." Mark's expression didn't change. He held his hands loose at his sides, like he didn't need to hurry. "I'm telling you," he said. "Leave." The landlord hesitated, then pushed past him. I heard the landlord inhale sharply. I didn't hear him exhale. Mark's head turned slowly toward the landlord, like he was disappointed. "Hey," the landlord said, voice smaller. "What is that?" I couldn't see the thing, only a sliver of the bedroom doorway from where I stood. But I saw the landlord's face. The color drained out of it so fast it looked like someone turned down the saturation. His mouth opened and nothing came out for a second. Then he took a step back, bumping into Mark. "Mark," he said, and it sounded like pleading. "What the hell is in there?" Mark didn't answer. The landlord's eyes found me. And in that moment I saw the exact instant he decided I was the only other real person in the room. "Call the police," he said. Mark's hand moved. It was quick, but not frantic, like reaching for a light switch. He grabbed the landlord by the back of the neck. The landlord made a choking sound. Mark's other hand came up holding something dark. I didn't see where it came from. It was just suddenly there. The landlord jerked, and a wet, ugly sound filled the apartment. I took a step back into the hallway without thinking. I don't remember deciding to run. My body just did it. I turned and sprinted down the hall, and I heard the landlord fall behind me, a heavy thud that made the walls shiver. I fumbled my keys, dropped them, scooped them up, got my door open. I slammed it shut and locked it. Then I locked it again like that would help. My hands shook so hard I couldn't get my phone unlocked. I pressed my back to the door and listened. No footsteps, no shouting, just the building settling and my own breathing, loud in my ears. I told myself Mark would stay in his apartment. I told myself he wouldn't come for me. I told myself I'd call the police, and they'd show up, and it would be handled. My phone finally accepted my fingerprint. Then I saw I had missed calls from my sister. 2. One from the night before. One from that morning, The screen felt like it belonged to someone else. Everything about normal life looked fake. I hit the emergency number. My finger hovered. I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe because once you press it, you can't go back to thinking you imagine things. I pressed. The line rang. Then it went silent. Not the quiet of a call connecting. The quiet of a dead line. I stared at the screen. No signal. That didn't make sense. I always had signal in my apartment. I moved toward the window. Still nothing. My phone showed a single bar, then none. I tried again. Dead. A knock hit my door. Not loud, not polite, just firm enough to make it clear someone meant it. I didn't answer. Another knock. Then Mark's voice, calm as ever, right on the other side of the wood. Open the door. My mouth went dry. I backed away, step by step, until I hit the kitchen counter. I didn't have a weapon. I had a cheap knife block and a frying pan, and a sense of being very stupid for ever thinking locks were protection. Open the door, he said again. I stayed silent. He exhaled, like I was wasting his time. I don't want to make a mess in the hallway, he said. That sentence did something to me. It wasn't a threat the way people imagine threats. It was practical, like he was talking about spilling paint. I grabbed the frying pan. My hands were slick with sweat. The doorknob moved. I hadn't heard any keys, but the knob turned anyway. The lock clicked. I stared at it, brain stalling. Then the door swung inward. Mark stepped in like he belonged there. He closed the door behind him gently. He locked it. He looked around my apartment, taking in the small details. The coat on the chair, the dishes in the sink, the cheap lamp by the couch. His expression was flat but not cold, just blank. I didn't know you were going to be there, he said. I held the frying pan up between us. I'm going to scream, I said. He nodded once like he believed me. That's fine. Nobody's going to come. My stomach dropped. He stepped closer. Stay back, I said. He stopped. I'm not here to argue. I need you to understand something. Get out, I said. He looked at the frying pan, then back at my face. You're shaking. Yeah, I said. Because you just... I couldn't finish the sentence. Mark's eyes didn't flicker. He shouldn't have gone in my room. Your room? I said. There's something in there. I keep things, he said. The way he said it, it sounded like someone saying they collect stamps. I wanted to throw up. He took a breath, slow and controlled. Listen, I'm not going to pretend you didn't see what you saw. You did. That means I can't let you walk around with it. My grip tightened on the pan. He tilted his head. But I don't like doing extra work. I don't like surprises. I like routines. He took a small step to the side, putting himself between me and the hallway, as if that mattered, as if the whole building wasn't his now. What do you want? I asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes wandered again, and then landed on my phone on the counter. You tried to call, he said, I stared at him. What did you do to the phones? I have equipment, he said. It's temporary. I didn't know if he was lying. I didn't know what he was capable of. I only knew the landlord wasn't making noise anymore. Mark stepped toward the kitchen. I raised the pan. He held up one hand, palm open. Don't. You hit me with that. You'll still lose. And then I'll be irritated. I don't want to be irritated. My arms ached. Why? I said. Why do any of this? He looked like he was thinking about how to explain a simple concept to someone slow. I don't do it for fun, he said. I don't do it because of some story in my head. I do it because I need it to be a certain way. Certain way, I echoed. He nodded. Order. I couldn't help it. A laugh came out of me, sharp and ugly. Order? You killed him. Mark's face tightened for the first time. Not anger. Something closer to annoyance. He wasn't part of the plan, he said. I swallowed. What plan? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to my fridge. I froze. The frying pan felt ridiculous now. I watched him like he was a wild animal moving through my kitchen. He opened the fridge, looked inside, then closed it. Nothing in here, he said. What? You don't cook, he said. You eat out. You throw away your receipts. I blinked. What are you talking about? He turned to me. I've watched you. The words hit harder than the violence. I felt my skin crawl. He took a step closer again, slow. I know when you leave. I know when you come back. I know you don't have anyone here. I know you don't lock the chain sometimes. My throat tightened. I did lock it sometimes, didn't I? You think you're careful, he said, reading my face. You're not. I wanted to scream then, to rip my throat open with noise, but he was right. Nobody came when people screamed in this building. You'd hear it sometimes and then you'd turn your TV up. Mark looked at the frying pan again. Put it down. No, I said. He sighed. Okay. He moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was a few feet away. The next his hand was on my wrist. His grip wasn't crushing. It was controlled. He twisted just enough that my fingers loosened. The pan hit the floor with a clatter. I tried to pull back, but he stepped in, close enough that I could smell him. Clean soap, faint chemical underneath. Stop, I gasped. He didn't strike me. He didn't punch or slap. He just held my arm and guided me toward the living room like he was moving a piece of furniture. You can sit, he said, or you can fall. Either way, you're not leaving. I fought anyway. Not because I thought I'd win, but because my body refused to accept what was happening. He tightened his grip a fraction. Pain shot up my arm. I went still. Good, he said, like I'd finally done something right. He let go and pointed at the couch. I sat because the alternative felt like being dragged. Mark stood in front of me, hands at his sides. His eyes flicked to the window, then to the door, then back to me. You shouldn't have come, I said. I had to, he said. He's in my apartment. That's a problem. My mind snagged on the casual way he said it. "What are you going to do?" I asked. He considered me. "I'm going to clean. Then I'm going to decide what to do with you." I felt cold all over. "You're going to kill me," I said. He frowned slightly. "Maybe. But I don't like waste." He said it like he was talking about groceries. I looked past him toward the kitchen. My phone sat on the counter, useless. Mark followed my gaze. "Don't." I forced my eyes back to him. He walked to the window and peeked between the blinds. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Checking," he said. "For what?" "For people who think they're helpful," he said. He moved away from the window and came back toward me. When he was close, I could see little things I hadn't noticed before. A faint scratch near his thumb. A bruise on the inside of his wrist, like a strap had been too tight. His nails were trimmed short, clean. You could imagine him as someone's coworker, someone's cousin. That's what made it worse. "I'm going to tell you something," he said, "and you're going to listen. If you interrupt, I'm going to get impatient. If I get impatient, you'll bleed. I don't want blood in here." I stared at him. He took that as agreement. "I have a room," he said. "It's my bedroom. It's where I keep what matters. People think trophies are for showing off. That's not what they're for. They're for me. They're proof that things happen the way they were supposed to." My stomach rolled. "I don't keep pictures," he went on. "Pictures rot in your head. They change. They lie. I keep what's real." I didn't speak. Mark's eyes stayed on mine. "You saw part of it. You didn't see everything." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to." "I know," he said. "But you might have to." He leaned down, not close enough to touch, but close enough that his voice felt like it belonged inside my skull. "Because if you're going to live, you're going to understand why you can't talk." I felt tears prick behind my eyes. Not from sadness, but from the pressure of fear. He straightened. Then he did something that almost broke me. He smiled. It wasn't big. It wasn't charming. It was like a muscle twitch. "I don't enjoy the messy parts," he said. "I enjoy the finished result." I thought about the blue glow in his apartment, the hum that stopped when the door opened. I imagined a neat, clean room with something inside it that didn't belong. Mark turned toward my kitchen again. "I need tape," he said, as if he was making a shopping list. I didn't move. He opened my drawer, found tape without asking, and held it up. "Where are your cables?" he asked. "My cables?" "For your internet," he said. I didn't answer. My mouth wouldn't cooperate. Mark's eyes narrowed just a touch. "Show me." I stood slowly, legs shaky, and pointed toward the corner by the TV where a cord ran into the wall. He crouched and ran his fingers along it. "You're connected," he murmured. "Of course I am," I said before I could stop myself. He glanced back at me. "Not right now." He reached behind the TV stand, and I heard a soft click. The blue light on my router died. I stared. "Why?" He looked at me like I was missing something obvious. So you can't message anyone either. He walked back toward me with the tape. Hands, he said. I backed away. He stopped again, patient. If you make me chase you around this apartment, I'll break something. I don't want to break things. My eyes darted around for an escape. The window, the door, the fire escape. But he was between me and all of it. I held my hands out, shaking. Mark wrapped tape around my wrists, tight but not cutting. He took care with it, like he'd done it before, like he didn't want to damage the skin. Then he led me to a chair and guided me into it. He taped my ankles too. I hated how gentle he was about it. When he was done, he stepped back and looked at me. Okay, he said. Now I can work. I watched him move around my apartment, calm and methodical. He opened cabinets, drawers, the closet, like he was taking inventory. What are you looking for? I asked. He didn't answer. He went to my bathroom and came back holding a towel. He glanced at the walls. This isn't soundproof, he said. I swallowed. You're worried about noise. He nodded. Noise is unpredictable. He folded the towel, then held it up. I shook my head. He hesitated, watching my face. I'm not going to suffocate you, he said. I'm going to keep you from yelling. I tried to pull my wrists free. The tape held. Mark placed the towel over my mouth and wrapped another strip of tape around my head, not tight enough to hurt, but enough to pin the towel in place. It smelled like my own laundry soap. That made it worse. He stepped back again. He looked satisfied. Then he left my apartment. He didn't even take the key. He just unlocked my door, slipped out, and locked it behind him from the outside. I sat there, taped to a chair, a towel strapped over my mouth, listening. At first there was nothing but my heartbeat and the soft creak of the building. Then, faintly, from down the hall, I heard movement. A drag, a scrape, something heavy being shifted. I tried to rock the chair. It wobbled. The tape on my ankles bit into my skin. I forced myself to breathe through my nose. Time stopped being a straight line. It turned into a thick, slow pace. I don't know how long Mark was gone. It could have been minutes. It could have been an hour. When he came back, he didn't look rushed. He stepped into my apartment, closed the door, and locked it. His jacket was off now. He wore a plain shirt that clung slightly to his shoulders, like he'd been sweating. His hands were clean. That detail made me want to cry. He looked at me and nodded, like we were continuing a conversation. It's handled, he said. I stared at him, eyes burning. He walked to my kitchen sink, turned on the water, and washed his hands again anyway. Slow, careful. Then he dried them with a paper towel. He walked back toward me. Now, he said, we need to deal with your part. He crouched in front of me so we were level. His eyes were steady. I'm going to ask you something, he said, and you're going to answer by nodding or shaking your head. If you lie, it won't matter, but I'll know. People always think they can lie. They can't. He waited. I nodded once, small. "Do you have anyone who will come here tonight?" he asked. I thought of my sister's missed calls. I shook my head. He studied me, like he was reading the tremor in my neck, the wetness in my eyes. "You have family," he said. My heart pounded. He didn't sound accusatory, just certain. "Do you have anyone who will come here looking for you if you don't answer?" he asked. I hesitated. Mark's eyes narrowed. I nodded. He exhaled through his nose. "Okay." He stood and paced the living room, hands behind his back. I watched him like a mouse watches a cat. "People notice patterns," he said. "Not right away, but eventually." He glanced at me. "You're young enough that you still believe people care." My throat tightened behind the towel. He kept pacing. "I can't let you go," he said. "But I don't want you in my bedroom. Not yet. Not yet." The words turned my stomach. He stopped and looked at me. "You're going to help me," he said. I shook my head violently. He didn't react. "You will. Because you want to live. And because you'll realize that fighting me won't make you a hero. It'll just make you hurt." He walked to my closet and opened it. He sifted through clothes until he found my thick scarf. He held it up, considering. Then he looked back at me. "I'm going to move you," he said. "If you struggle, you'll fall. If you fall, you'll make noise. If you make noise, I'll have to do something that takes longer. I hate taking longer." He stepped behind my chair and wrapped the scarf around my chest, tying it to the chair back so I couldn't tip forward. Then he put his hands on the chair. He started to drag me toward the door. My feet scraped the floor. The chair legs squealed softly. He winced at the sound and adjusted, lifting slightly so it wouldn't scrape as much. We went out into the hallway. The air out there was colder. The smell from Mark's apartment was less now, like he'd sealed something off. But it was still there, lurking. He pulled me down the hall. My head bumped against the chair back with each small crack in the floor. My eyes watered. The towel muffled my breath, making each inhale feel like work. He stopped in front of his door. He unlocked it. Inside was dim, the curtains still drawn. The blue glow was gone. The hum was back, quieter now. Mark dragged me in. The air inside his apartment was warmer, thick and stale. He pulled me past the living room and toward the bedroom. I tried to twist my head to see. He put a hand on my forehead, guiding my face forward. "Don't look around," he said. I made a muffled sound, half sob, half protest. He didn't slow down. Then we crossed the threshold. The bedroom was bigger than I expected. The first thing I saw was that it was clean. Too clean. The floor was bare. The bed was made. The walls were plain, like a staged apartment, except for the far wall. There were shapes lined up there. At first, my brain tried to turn them into something else. Coats on hooks, mannequins, a weird art project. Then the smell hit harder, and the shapes resolved into bodies. I won't describe everything. I can't. and I won't. But I saw enough. They were arranged like someone had tried to make them tidy, not tossed, not chaotic, placed. Some sat propped against the wall, some were laid down, covered partially with sheets that didn't hide the outlines. Their faces, number. I can't. But there was something missing from every one of them. Something that made their expressions look wrong, unfinished. And I saw plastic tubing. Not everywhere. Not like a medical room with tubes and machines. Just a single tube on each, going from a point near the head, disappearing under the sheet, or into the wall behind them. It looked like a twisted version of life support. I made a sound I couldn't control. Mark stopped and faced me. His eyes watched mine carefully. "Now you understand," he said. My stomach convulsed. I gagged behind the towel. Mark stepped closer and spoke quietly. "These are mine. They don't belong to anyone else anymore. They don't get to be found. They don't get to be mourned. They don't get to be discussed. They're finished." He said, "finished," the way someone talks about a project. He walked to the side of the room and touched a small device on a table. The hum changed pitch slightly. I watched his hand. "Why the tubes?" I tried to say, but it came out muffled. He looked at me and after a moment, reached up and peeled the tape from my head, removing the towel. My lips were numb. My mouth tasted like detergent. He held the towel in one hand like it was a napkin. "Talk normally," he said. "Don't scream. If you scream, the towel goes back and I stop being careful." My throat worked. "Why the tubes?" Mark's eyes flicked toward the line of bodies. "I need to know they're really done," he said. "That doesn't make sense," I whispered. "It doesn't have to make sense to you," he said. He stepped closer to the nearest body and adjusted the sheet like he was making a bed. "You take away the part that argues," he said, choosing his words. "You take away the part that makes noise, and then you make sure the head is prepared." I felt my face go cold. He looked back at me. "You see it now. You see why noise matters." I shook my head. "This is insane." Mark didn't disagree. He didn't defend himself. He just stared at me. "People always say that," he said. He walked to the corner of the room and opened a wardrobe. Inside were supplies arranged on shelves. Not random. Organized. Clear containers. Labels. My eyes landed on a coil of tubing. My stomach lurched. Mark closed the wardrobe and turned back to me. "You're going to make a phone call," he said. "What?" "You're going to call whoever will come looking," he said. "You're going to tell them you're fine. You're going to tell them you're staying somewhere else tonight. You're going to sound normal." I stared at him. "I can't. My phone." "I can," he said. He walked to the dresser, opened a drawer, and pulled out a phone. Not mine. He held it up like a magician showing a trick. "I have signal," he said, "because I decide where signal exists." My mind flashed to my sister's missed calls. "Please," I said, the word falling out before I could stop it. Mark's face stayed blank. "Don't do that," he said. "Begging doesn't change anything." He looked at the phone screen, then held it toward me. "What's their name?" he asked. "My sister," I whispered. "Number?" he asked. I shook my head. "I don't know it by heart." Mark stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked out of the bedroom. I heard drawers opening in the living room. I heard him moving through my stuff with the same calm purpose. He came back holding my phone which had been dead. It lit up in his hand. "Face ID," he said. I stared. He grabbed my chin, not rough but firm, and angled my face toward the screen. It unlocked. He scrolled, found my sister's name, and pressed call. The ringing sound filled the room. My heart hammered. Mark held the phone to my ear. "It's on speaker," he said softly. "Say the right thing." My sister picked up after 2 rings. "Hey," she said. "Finally. Are you okay? You didn't answer earlier." My throat tightened. I wanted to scream her name. I wanted to tell her everything. Mark's hand rested on the back of my chair. Steady. A quiet reminder. "I'm okay," I forced out. My voice sounded like someone else. "Sorry. Busy day." "Busy?" she said. "It's not like you." I was worried. "I know," I said. I'm staying somewhere else tonight. I'll call tomorrow." There was a pause. "Where?" she asked. My brain scrambled. I couldn't lie fast enough. Mark leaned in close, and I felt his breath near my ear. "Stay with a friend," he whispered. "With a friend," I said. My sister hesitated. "Which friend?" I almost choked. Mark's hand pressed gently on my shoulder. Not pain. Not yet. "I met someone from work," I said. "It's fine." Another pause. My sister's voice shifted. "This is weird. Put me on video." My stomach dropped. Mark's eyes narrowed. "No," I said too quickly. "I can't. Battery's low. I'll call tomorrow. I promise." My sister didn't speak for a second. Then, "Is someone there with you?" she asked. My hands trembled against the tape. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say help. Mark's fingers tightened slightly on my shoulder. "No," I said. My sister inhaled. "You sound off." "I'm tired," I said. "I'm fine. Please don't overthink it." There was another pause, and I could hear her breathing. "Okay," she said, but it didn't sound okay. "Call me tomorrow morning. Early." "I will," I said. Mark's thumb hovered near the screen. "Say goodbye," he whispered. "Goodbye," I said. I hung up before she could say anything else. The silence afterward felt like a hole in the air. Mark watched me carefully, like he was waiting for me to collapse. "You did well," he said. I stared at him, shaking. Mark looked toward the bodies again. "Now you're part of it," he said. "What?" He turned back. "Not like them. Not yet." My stomach twisted. He stepped closer and crouched again, face level with mine. "You're going to stay here tonight," he said. "If you try anything, it won't work. If you behave, you might get to leave later." I wanted to believe him. I knew better. "Why me?" I whispered. Mark's eyes softened, just barely. "Because you saw. Because you were there. Because you're quiet when you need to be. Most people aren't." He stood. "I'm going to sleep," he said. The absurdity of that almost made me laugh. "You can't just..." He looked at me. "I can." He walked to the bed and pulled the blanket down, still careful, still neat. He climbed in like this was a normal night. Then he turned off the small lamp on the dresser. The room went dimmer, lit only by a faint light from somewhere in the apartment. I sat in the chair, taped, staring at the line of bodies along the wall. My eyes kept skimming away from their faces, landing instead on the tubing. I didn't understand the purpose, and the not understanding was part of the horror. It wasn't ritual in the way you see in movies. It wasn't about candles or symbols. It was about control. Mark shifted in the bed. "Try to rest," he said, as if we were both tired after a long day. I sat there in the dark, listening to his breathing change slowly, and I realized something in the quiet. He wasn't pretending to be normal. This was normal to him. I stared at the bedroom door, at the window, at the shapes along the wall. I tried to think of any small detail I could use later. The position of the lock, the way his keys sounded, the fact that he cared about noise, the fact that he hated mess. I held on to those facts like they were handholds on a cliff. Because once you've seen a room like that, you stop believing in lucky. You stop believing the world is mostly safe, and you start believing in one simple thing: that if you get out, it's because you made yourself get out.